20 years ago, Danny Boyle and Alex Garland redefined the zombie movie genre with 28 Days Later. Now they're back with 28 years later. Did 28 years later actually need to exist? Or did it once again reinvent the zombie movie genre? This movie happens to be pretty divisive, so I'm curious what you guys think. Let's get into it. As the title suggests, we are now 28 years later from the outbreak of the rage virus. They actually did a little bit of retconning. So I remember, Marvin, you had said you wanted to watch 28 Weeks Later. That movie's like a straight to DVD movie. I forgot how bad it was. They like, the camera is just shaking all over the place the whole movie. But that movie ends on quite a cliffhanger where they show Paris, suggesting that the rage virus has escaped the British Isles and is now reaching mainland Europe. That movie also established a new virus mechanism, which was the fact that some people are just carriers and they don't actually get the virus, they just carry. So 28 years later, retcon that out. That doesn't exist. However, the movie does slightly address that, yes, the virus did reach mainland Europe, but the European Union and or not the European, well, whoever, France and like the UN and all these other organizations sort of pushed it back and then quarantined off the British Isles. So that's where this movie takes place. They've contained the virus to the British Isles.
Quarantine zone.
The country is a sealed quarantine zone. And the interesting twist here is that society outside the zone still functions. Like, life has gone on. They are in modern day, full modern society. We get some glimpses about that in a little conversation later in the movie. This movie is about this little group of survivors on an island, and they're sequestered by the incoming and outgoing tide that creates a land bridge when at low tide that connects them to the mainland, where they go from time to time to collect supplies and stuff like that. In this particular story, Jamie is taking his son Spike out for the first time to the mainland, and they run into some zombies, and we're introduced to some new versions of the zombies, these like fat slug guys, and they're
alphas.
The alphas who have giant dicks flopping around. They're communal now, the infected, which is interesting.
I didn't see the point of this personally. We were making jokes about The Walking Dead, but it definitely just felt like that, more of that. Each season of The Walking Dead, it just starts to get more and more crazy, where like the zombies are like almost speaking or some shit in one of the seasons. This and the second one, I mean, we both agree that the second one was
second
terrible,
one's complete dog shit.
But I think this one was not as bad, but nowhere near as good as the first one, and like didn't have me as invested or even really interested as the first one at all.
So you are echoing a lot of the negative feelings.
Oh yeah, I'm on the negative side.
Well, 100%. No, but for the same reasons too. A lot of people have said like the tonal shift of this movie. There's actually a few tonal shifts in the movie, but from the first to this one is very jarring for a lot of people, and I understand that totally.
Because it's zombies, it's only so much you could do.
That's the thing, yeah.
It was like it didn't feel like there was anything that we hadn't really seen before.
Really, you feel that way, even with the little twist towards the end there?
Yeah, no, that was a twist. I will give you that, but that's not enough to salvage it for me.
Okay. That's fair.
Kind of with Marvin on this. I mean, it was an all right movie. Had some interesting parts, but largely unnecessary. And I don't know how this trilogy is going to go, because I don't necessarily have that much interest in the sequel, with the Teletubby gang and Ralph Fiennes' character.
The Jimmies.
Hanging out with the alpha and the other zombies. I don't know. It just took it in a weird direction. It feels like like Marvin said, there's only so much you can do with zombies. So it feels like they're just trying to like force some story onto you to make you think that, oh, wow, this is different. And it's so groundbreaking, but it's like, it's kind of stupid sometimes.
Now we're 28 years later. I said the thing. And obviously
roll credits.
There as would happen in real life, there would be an evolution to the virus, especially left to its own devices in isolation in this quarantine zone. Nature has reclaimed the land. The infected have just been left to do whatever the fuck they do. If you remember from the first one, like, they are just humans. They're not zombies. They're not undead. They have the rage virus. So
Right. That's
in
fair.
in
Yeah.
the first one, we are already introduced to the concept that they have human qualities that are suppressed by this virus. This group that we encounter in this movie, this like tribe almost of infected. That's why they are in like a pack, and they have developed like a pack mentality. They have developed like cooperation skills, and you see like there's very clearly they're communicating with one another and on some level. They've developed like alphas that like take over the pack. It becomes like a very animalistic pack mentality. And honestly, it kind of felt fairly realistic in terms of just how nature operates, and that like you could
That's fair,
imagine that after this long period of time untouched by any outside forces, like this could happen. At one point they come across this pregnant infected, suggesting that she was pregnant while she became infected, and now she's having the baby when she's in labor when we come across her. So I thought that was actually pretty cool, and it added a new layer of like storytelling to the zombie thing. Like you guys both said, like there is only so much you could do with a fucking zombie movie. We're out of ideas now. Like we've done it all. Thanks, Romero. I felt the same way you guys did in that first half of the movie when he's out with his dad and stuff like that. Once he goes out alone with his mom, and that movie kind of takes a turn, and it's no longer really like it's still pretty thrilling, but it becomes a different movie, and it's more of like the first one, where it's really about like humanity. And this movie expands on that, and it's like what it actually means to be human. The infected mother was like clearly enraged by the virus, was no longer human, but on some level still had that like motherly connection where she was like, oh, I'm trying to have a baby and preserve like that human instinct, that, or even animal instinct to like protect your young is still there in her, even though she's a fucking raged out zombie, right? And then of course this movie really explores death and like how we deal with it as human beings. And like we've talked about this before, but like we're the only species that like exists as far as we know that like under the constant understanding that we're going to die eventually, right? Like so that's like a heavy thing to deal with, and this is what that movie explores through Spike's experience like trying to save his mom.
I like the idea of them evolving and like slightly overcoming the virus too in some way. Yeah, I thought that was pretty good.
Not an entirely new idea. They kind of meddled with like the consciousness of zombies in a lot of other movies. Like I Am Legend kind of deals with it.
I think with 28 Days Later, the appeal of that movie is the human element. It's like that movie is really not about the virus. The virus is just the plot device. And I think this continued that trend.
Right.
By
basically a coming of age story.
So. Yeah,
for
just in a different way.
Stuck on the island. Yeah.
What this movie's like real central theme is like these primal fears. It's not really so much the fear of the infected. It's the existential fears of like death and like the other person, our neighbor, the soldier, the fucking weird doctor in the woods burning bodies and stuff like that.
Always like that aspect because we see that in different genres too. Like if you think about any type of post-apocalyptic thing, like at some point it becomes the norm, right? Humans adapt and they get used to whatever situation they're in. And then, okay, I know what to expect from the zombies, but now it's still this other group of people over here that might just fuck me over. And you're like, you just got to always be like watching out for that. So, yeah.
You know, finding out that Dr. Kelson or whatever was just, you know, he was a smart guy living by himself. And then it makes me wonder, like, Spike's dad, like, was he just telling a story to keep Spike, like, away from it? Like we all ran away from that guy and nobody's ever been back since. Like, why wouldn't anybody go talk to that guy and see what's up? Like, are we really that scared, like, of one guy out there?
I think,
that's like another of the human factor. Like, rumors spread, right? And then next thing you know, the guy is like a monster. Like, it started off like, oh man, this guy cussed me out, or this guy, whatever. And then next thing you know, he's like the worst person in the world. So, to
be fair, if you came across a single man with like hundreds and hundreds of bodies, like nicely laid out, I feel like that would probably be pretty scary.
That's fair.
But like, it's part of that theme of like you're afraid of that. Like they'd rather stay isolated than like go talk to that dude. You know what I mean? you know, again, at the end of the day, I think it's really a human story, and it always has been since the original. And I like how it explored it in this movie through a different lens. It showed how the, like, you know, communities like break down under, like, with the pandemic and stuff like that. It had all the similar beats of a zombie movie, just done in a differently, more unique way. Is like really the only way I could, you know, explain it. Does the movie need to exist? No, of course not. The first, like, I don't think so.
Of course not.
No, I mean, it doesn't.
That's funny.
Well, because why do we need another addition to this world? But it's not. I don't think it's that big of a deal, because you're just telling another story in this setting, which I don't think is a bad thing. And if you're gonna do that, and you're gonna do it 20 years later, you can't make it exactly the same as the first movie. Like,
sure,
28 Weeks Later tried, and it was bad. It was just like a cheap recreation of it. You either go all in or fold in this case. And so they wanted to make the movie, and I guess they thought they had a good story to tell, and they made some bold decisions to give us something different, which I appreciate.
I appreciate your insights into some of the things that I may have overlooked just because I was
4x speed.
Like, oh, this isn't the first one. So
I feel like this was more of a setup movie for the trilogy, or at least the sequel. Like, this was more about, like, okay, this is Spike, and this is who Spike is and how he got to where he is. Now let's tell the story of Spike through these other two movies that we hope to make. One's already made and is coming out in January. The other one we don't know. But
will this reinvent the zombie genre like the original did, where, like, it spawned a lot of different tropes of its own, of like running zombies and rage monsters and all this other stuff and ways to shoot? I don't know, probably not, but I do appreciate it for at least doing something different within the genre. Like I said, it is a little bit split, and for the reasons that you guys said, I think a lot of people ran into a lot of the same stuff with it. And again, I don't blame anybody for that. I totally get it. It's got a 6.7 on IMDb, so not great, not the worst. I would bump it up. I would give this an 8.
I would probably give it a 7. I originally wanted to give it a 6, but we talked about it more, seeing it a little bit differently. So
I sold you a little bit.
You sold me a little bit.
All right.
Open my eyes a little bit. Third eye open.
Nice.
Not me. I'd give it a 6. It's a mid movie. I mean, it's worth a watch if you like the genre or you like the original. Again, I don't think there's anything groundbreaking.
At least you didn't hate it, because that's the worst, when you just can't sit through something. I'll tell you what, I almost turned off 28 Weeks Later watching it. I watched it back to back, and I was like, fuck. Like, but like, I'm a completionist, and I was like, I gotta see it through.
I couldn't do it.
Dude,
it's so bad.
That helicopter scene was so funny.
That movie has good reviews too. Like, I don't understand why, but like, that's the thing with the general audience. Like, that's why I think a lot of people don't like this, is because, like, they just wanted more of what the first one was, which at that point don't make, like, I don't want to see the same movie 20 years later.